An MEP who has defected to the Conservatives had reached the end of the road with UKIP, party leader Nigel Farage has said. Amjad Bashir was suspended by UKIP over various allegations, all of which he denies, shortly before announcing his defection on Saturday. He quit after criticising UKIP's ridiculous lack of policies. On the BBC's Andrew Marr show, Mr. Farage also said UKIP would commit an extra £3 billion per year in NHS funding. The party said it would raise the cash by quitting the EU and through middle management cuts. In his interview, Mr. Farage also said UKIP would win more than 3 or 4 seats at the general election. Comments by UKIP official Matthew Richardson that the party stood for bigots were a joke while he was having a drink in the pub. Attempts to paint UKIP as a racist party were dead. UKIP were unlikely to join a post-election coalition, but that he could potentially do a deal with David Cameron over an EU referendum. For agreement to be reached on a referendum, there would have to be equal spending limits and only British citizens would be allowed to vote. Mr. Bashir, a former Conservative, was elected as a UKIP MEP last year. Before the defection was announced, UKIP suspended him and said he was being investigated for matters including unanswered financial and employment questions and interference with candidates' election processes. Mr. Bashir said his suspension was a crude attempt to discredit him. There is not a shred of truth in any of the claims, but it has made me more convinced than ever that I made the right decision, he wrote in the Mail on Sunday. Desperate stuff. Mr. Farage said he had become increasingly alarmed by Mr. Bashir's behavior in recent months. Whichever way we look at this, he had reached the end of the road with us, he said, adding that his only surprise was that the Conservatives had accepted him. And he said reports of the comments by Mr. Richardson, the party's secretary and a member of its National Executive Council, were an example of tribal politics involving the big two parties and their friends in the media. In footage released by the Labour Party from 2010, Mr. Richardson also described the NHS as the biggest waste of money in the whole United Kingdom. Mr. Farage said the speech had been given when Mr. Richardson was a Conservative. Conservative Party Chairman Grant Shapps described Mr. Bashir's suspension by UKIP as desperate stuff. He told Sky News the MEP had defected because of the chaos within UKIP, and that the Conservatives were the only party offering complete control over immigration and Europe.